Hi, I'm John Quigley, President and CEO of the Elmhurst Chamber of Commerce and Industry. In these challenging economic times, it's imperative that our residents and businesses band together to not only shop Elmhurst, but buy Elmhurst whenever possible. We have great stores in our city center, Spring Road, Butterfield Road, York and Villette Streets, St. Charles and Route 83, North Avenue and Lake Street, along North York and even Grand Avenue. I ask for your help. Let's keep our tax dollars in Elmhurst.
Ladies and gentlemen, at this time I am pleased to present our 2014 Dukes of Distinction and their representatives. Welcome. And you're welcome to go join your families now, where you'll be much more comfortable, I know, than being up here. Good evening. Our thanks to the York Symphony Strings. We are so thrilled to have you here tonight. You may have recognized that the music that they were playing tonight was a collection of pieces from the movies that Gary Rystrom was involved with. And so thank you to Mr. Oswald and to the kids. And we are going to excuse our orchestra students to go ahead and leave now, because I understand that you have a lot of homework tonight that you need to work on. So we're going to take just a minute to excuse the orchestra. I would like to take just a moment to thank our distinguished alumni committee members who put the program together tonight. Without their hard work, this certainly would not have been possible. Their names are in the program, but I also thought it would be good if they would stand up and be recognized. So the YDAB committee, if you would stand up to be recognized. And I would also like to take a minute, there we go, mood lighting. And I would like to take a minute to introduce the York Advisory Team, our students and parents and staff members who are here. The students are serving as the hosts and the escorts tonight. So would you all stand and please be recognized. And you may not go home. You'll have to do your homework later. And at this time, our students, I believe that you have a gift that you would like to present. And this is a collection of York and District 205 gifts that have been put together for you to help you remember this night and to connect you back here with York High School. So you are receiving those now. Also, as you look around tonight in this beautiful lighting, in this beautiful room, you can see a little bit of green glowing, and as the principal of the school, you can never have too much green. But can I ask for all of the York alumni to please stand and show off your green? Oh, nice. Nice. On behalf of the students and staff of York High School, and as the principal here, it is my honor to welcome you tonight to our ceremony. Looking around, we know what a special evening this is. The students, when they walked in tonight, couldn't believe what it looked like, and it doesn't look quite like this during the daytime when we have 2,700 students moving through here. This is a beautiful commons, this courtyard. Some of you remember it as the outdoor courtyard when you were here, and others know it as the commons now. But I think it's so beautiful that we're here together, sort of the history and the future all together here in our commons. There's a saying that goes back a long way, and you see it all over here, and that's the saying that this is York, and it describes our history, and it describes our culture and our values, what we value, and it certainly says that we value being together tonight. We've been looking forward to this evening since we first heard who the new distinguished alumni would be. And I know that one of my favorite moments tonight was right out here when the alumni walked in and the students walked over to meet you, and I looked at your faces as you met each other for the first time. You inspire these kids. And I know them, and I know that they are the future of this school and of this community, and sitting in here are the future Dukes of Distinction. This is York. At this time, it's my pleasure to give a brief welcome, our Superintendent of Schools, Mr. Dave Purnell.
As Diana said, I just want to thank everyone involved in this wonderful event. There's one person in her department I'd like to really thank, and that's Malia Smith in the communications department, who really conceived of this and put it together and made it the event that I think it's going to be for years and years to come. Malia's in the back, of course, trying to hide. Malia. Thank you. Let me just say to our Dukes of Distinction, we are so thrilled to have you here, and I will tell you that you're going to give us a gift. And you may not know that, but you are. It's a very precious gift you're going to leave us with in the next day, and that is the inspiration you will provide to the students of York who are here. Never fails that when they hear that you walk these hallways, that you had the same problems and troubles and concerns as a teenager, and yet you overcame them and you became the distinguished person that you are today. That gives and touches students you will never know. You will never know which students really connect with you and will remember that and maybe go on to be a distinguished Duke sometime in their future. The other thing is you're giving us as a faculty a gift, because it reinforces to us that as educators we can make a difference. And you're living proof that dedicated teachers, some of who are here this evening, are making a difference in lives every day. They have the same problem you're going to have. You never know which ones you're going to make a difference with. You never know which ones are going to remember you and come back and very seldom thank you. But that is the gift, and it's a precious gift that I can't thank you enough for coming back, for being willing to spend some time with our students and the faculty to inspire us to continue the great work that this district does, that our teachers do on a daily basis. So thanks to the families for being here. Thanks for the Dukes of Distinction, for all of you tonight. We're looking forward to your stories. We're looking forward to watching the interaction of students and looking forward to meeting each and every one of you. Thank you very much and welcome.
We're honored to have members of the Board of Education here and our special guest tonight on the stage, both the Vice President of the Board of Education, Ms. Shannon Ebner, and the President of the Board of Education, Mr. Jim Collins. Mr. Collins?
Thank you. This is just a great event. I love this event. First, I wanted to introduce the Board of Education, who the vast majority are in the audience tonight. So can I ask the board to stand, please? So first, on stage, Shannon Ebner, John McDonough, Margaret Harrell, and Karen Stufen. Emily Bastido is not with us tonight, but I'm sure she's here in spirit. So we've already thanked the York Distinguished Alumni Committee, who, without their tireless efforts, this event would not exist. We've thanked Malia Smith for bringing this to York. Another group of people I want to thank, and please ask them to stand, is current and retired faculty members from York that are in the audience tonight. Because without the faculty members, they never could have shaped our lives and allowed the people who we honor here tonight to become who they are. Every once in a while, I'm pulled aside by someone, and usually I think the parent of an 8th grader, and in a hushed tone of voice, they say, "So, you know, Jim, I know you're kind of a numbers geek. Really, how good is York High School?" And since many of you haven't been back, I'll tell you the same story I tell the parents of the 8th graders. First thing I tell them is I'm happy to say York's composite ACT score is the highest it has ever been in history. Next, and I tell them to keep in mind that 8 of the top 10 public high schools in Illinois are Chicago magnet schools with entrance exams. It's very hard to compete against a school with an entrance exam. But using ACT scores as a benchmark, last year the Sun-Times ranked York 29th in the state, and the Tribune ranked York 28th in the state, up from number 60 just 5 years ago. This spring, using advanced placement class participation as a benchmark, the Washington Post ranked York the 22nd most challenging high school in Illinois. And of the over 25,000 high schools of the United States, Newsweek ranks York number 449, comfortably within the top 1.7% of all high schools in the United States. Also, based upon AP class participation and scores, the College Board selects about 475 high schools from the over 30,000 high schools in the US and Canada for a place on their AP honor roll. For each of the past 4 years, York has earned a place on the College Board's North American AP honor roll. Then I ask, did I mention that York won a Grammy Award last year? Each year, the Grammy Foundation receives applications from 20,000 high schools to judge the best music program in the country. After a rigorous evaluation and ending in a blind competition, York was chosen the number 2 high school music program in the United States. Then I ask, did I mention value? We achieved these results while the property taxpayers of District 205 pay a tax rate that is in the bottom quartile of all communities in DuPage County. And finally, the school board, the administration, our faculty, and everyone who works in the school district has made a commitment to our community that our schools will improve every year, and I'll give you one example. Next fall, in addition to the opportunity to take AP classes, qualifying juniors and seniors will have the opportunity to concurrently enroll in select college courses and earn actual college credit from a Tier 1 university. Those classes will be taught at York by York teachers who will be adjunct professors. Students that successfully succeed in these classes will graduate with a York diploma and a transcript from Indiana University. York, I'll point out, is the only high school in Illinois to be selected by Indiana University to participate in the university's Advanced College Project. But a great school is not about numbers. The numbers don't tell the story of a faculty that inspires students and encourages those students to believe in themselves, nor do they tell about a comprehensive curriculum that includes something to engage all students and allows them to explore new fields of study. Numbers cannot tell of the extracurricular opportunities, like the 89 clubs and sports that York offers, in which students learn leadership skills, explore the arts, develop their talents, experience the rewards that only hard work can bring, and discover who they really are. I propose to you that to properly judge a high school, judge it by the peoples whose lives it has influenced and nurtured. Listen to the stories of the alumni we honor here tonight. Then you tell me at the end of the evening if York is a great high school.
And now what we've all been waiting for, to hear from and about our distinguished alumni. Starting with Dr. Martin Stoker, who graduated from York in 1939. He attended the University of Illinois and then was drafted into the Army. He was a veteran of the Korean War, where he served in a MASH unit, and prior to that in World War II. He studied at universities in California and Oregon and earned his medical degree at the University of Illinois. He practiced here locally internal medicine and cardiology at the Elmhurst Clinic and at the Elmhurst Hospital for over 30 years. He developed many new programs there and founded and ran the radioisotope lab, among many other innovative initiatives. Dr. Stoker passed away in 2006. He's joined here tonight in spirit by his wife, and we welcome to represent him tonight his colleague and friend, Dr. Ira Marty Grace.
Good evening. As you can imagine, I've spent a fair number of years in school, and I have spent a fair amount of time in the principal's office. This is the first time I've ever been introduced by a principal. So thank you, Diana Smith. I first met Marty Stoker at Elmhurst Hospital in 1965. I was a moonlighting medical resident from Hines VA Hospital, where Dr. Stoker had done his internal medicine residency also. One Sunday, a nurse called me to see a new admission with a heart attack. I was concerned about the peculiar ordered treatment being just multiple vitamins, and spoke to the nurse. She had me call Dr. Stoker, who was the well-respected go-to doctor at Elmhurst. We met when he came to see the patient from his home on that Sunday morning. I had no idea who Dr. Stoker was. That he was friendly and very professional was obvious. He had a wonderful smile. He had a reputation for kindness, excellence, and a willingness to go out of his way for people. He was authentically altruistic. He too had done his internal medicine residency at Hines and had served as a doctor in a MASH unit during the Korean War. We discussed his experience in Korea treating hemorrhagic fever, which was a horrific illness. But he was not above stealing concrete in order to build a pool for the people in the area. I have an affinity for that kind of behavior myself. Marty and Jane Stoker became dear friends to me and my wife, Renee. I learned that Marty played golf and loved sailing, as in the Mackinac race. He was a seminal force at the Elmhurst Hospital and the Elmhurst Clinic. He was instrumental in creating the nuclear medicine department, and was particularly interested in thyroid studies. He introduced the use of the central venous catheter for hemodynamic monitoring, the use of peritoneal dialysis for kidney failure, and the defibrillator. Later, he created Elmhurst's first coronary care unit, which reduced heart attack in-hospital mortality from 30% to 15%. Mortality was cut in half. Yet Marty's leading reputation was his brilliance as a primary care doctor. He knew medicine and applied it expertly, recognizing that it was as important to know what disease had the patient as what patient had the disease. After my own Army tour during the Vietnam War and then a cardiology fellowship, I returned to Chicago to work. This time I moonlighted in the Elmhurst Clinic where Marty taught me much about caring for private patients. I also had the privilege of working with Shirley Damaris, one of the kindest and most effective staff I've had the pleasure of calling a cherished friend. I advised Marty on setting up a stress testing and Holter monitoring lab at Elmhurst Hospital, adding 2 more important innovations to his long list of contributions. Marty was really the godfather of cardiology at Elmhurst Hospital. He was my mentor and helped me decide to go into private practice. Over the years, we and our wives had many dinners. He taught us, and me in particular, how to appreciate a Manhattan, while Jean shared her love of horses. We all simply enjoyed trading anecdotes and experiences. Marty was curious, imaginative, observant, empathetic, and patient. In 1927, Dr. Francis W. Peabody wrote his definition of a good physician. It's short, and I would like to read it to you. The good physician knows his patients through and through, and his knowledge is bought dearly. Time, sympathy, and understanding must be lavishly dispensed, but the reward is to be found in that personal bond which forms the greatest satisfaction of the practice of medicine. One of the essential qualities of the clinician is interest in humanity, for the secret of the care of the patient is in caring for the patient. Marty Stoker was the very epitome of this definition through his acts of loving kindness and skills as a consummate physician. He has the covet of a good name and the recognition for many years of selflessly caring for thousands in need. Elmhurst and York High School deserve great credit for helping to mold this mensch and true physician who very much deserves the York Distinguished Alumnus Award.
And I should have asked, but we want to present the plaque to the recipients when you're here. Mr. Collins, Ms. Ebner will be presenting the awards, so we want to do that while you're here, and I apologize that I didn't ask you to stay up. Where is Mr. Stoker's table? Right here, great. And now it's my pleasure to tell you about Mr. John Cogan, who graduated from York in 1960. He was a track and field coach for 36 years and is the most decorated coach in Illinois State University history. He's a member of the Illinois State Athletics Hall of Fame, the United States Track and Field Coaches Hall of Fame, and the Missouri Valley Conference Hall of Fame. In 1977, he was named the National High School Coach of the Year, something we know a little bit about here, while coaching an undefeated state champion team, cross-country team, at Maine East High School. Mr. Newton, where are you? That must have been the one year you didn't win. Tonight, it is my pleasure to point out that Mr. Coughlin is joined at his table by his high school track coach, Mr. Joe Newton, who is here. And I thought what a beautiful circle this is, because coincidentally, as we celebrate with you tonight, tomorrow morning, Mr. Newton and Mr. Kern and Mr. Kern's son, who's running tomorrow, will be leaving for the state tournament. And Mr. Coughlin is going to wish them best at state. So it's wonderful to have you all here. At this time, it's my pleasure to welcome you back to York, Mr. John Coughlin.
Looking at those two pictures, you can see that coaching doesn't age a person very much, does it? York High School in the 1950s was a great place for a student to receive an education. The faculty were major contributors to this. Betty Bingham was my English teacher, and she had a sincere desire to help every one of her students. And then Joe Newton was a young coach in his mid-20s when I first met him, and he started to coach me. His enthusiasm for the sport, his love of the sport, his dedication, his upbeat personality, the way he handled each and every individual made you want to come back to practice. He was demanding, fair, and allowed you to dream big dreams. So Joe, I thank you for those. When I graduated from college, there's a picture of Joe Newton right there, and then there's a picture of Mike Seifert. Mike Seifert was an all-state cross-country runner for me who went into the Navy. He enrolled at Annapolis, the U.S. Naval Academy, and upon his retirement, told me how, and he retired as an admiral, commander of the naval base in Japan. And he told me how athletics was the keynote opportunity for him to start to learn discipline, to be able to think clearly under pressure, to be able to keep his emotions under control when all things around him seemed to be disintegrating. And he said, "Thanks, Coach, for the help you gave me." Although the truth is I gave him no help, it was all him. The next picture that I'd like to show you is Mike at the starting line of the state meet where he placed 10th in the state. And then the very next picture is an opportunity to receive a coaching award. You know, coaching awards are easy to get if you have good athletes, you know, and everything works out fine. But the uniqueness to that is behind a coach is a wonderful wife. I know my wife didn't think I was going to be saying this, but we've been married 51 years and she's put up with unbelievable trauma. I came home from the dogwood relays. We were there Thursday, Friday, Saturday. This was a typical weekend. Got home at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, jump in the car and go recruiting. "Hi, sweetie, how are you? I'll be back before dinner." Take off and go for 3 hours. I come back and pull into the driveway, and she's outside, and the neighbor next door is cutting the grass. And she yells out to him, "Hey, see, I am married. You've never seen him before, but this is him." Thanks, Sue. You know, when I graduated from college, a famous old college coach told me, if you want to be a terrific coach, you have to learn how to improvise and be willing to experiment. I did this in the high jump. We developed the ability to have an inclined plane, a ramp, because bar clearance is so critical in the high jump, it's so hard to teach. But when a person ran up the ramp and jumped, they jumped about 1.5 feet higher. It doubled and tripled the amount of time they were in the air so you could teach bar clearance. It paid off. One of our athletes was a two-time NCAA champion in the high jump and the NCAA all-time record holder, meet record holder, at 7 3/4. Another one of our high jumpers was the national junior champion and the national junior record holder at 7 6.5, and 11 of our high jumpers went over 7 feet, all because of the willingness to experiment and try something. Not every one of them was a success, but the ones that were successful really paid off. You know, one of the exciting things of coaching is to watch an athlete improve. Jimmy Olsen there was the slowest runner on our cross-country team as a freshman. As a senior, he was in the top 10 in the state in the half-mile run. It proves the old axiom of life. It's not where you start, but where you finish. One of the wonderful blessings of coaching is a close bond between a coach and an athlete. And I'm retired now, but one of the things that warms my heart the most is when the old fellas from the 60s or 70s or 80s right up to 2000 call you and say, Coach, how you doing? How is Sue? Or they give you a call and say, I'm coming to town tomorrow. I want to take you and Sue out to eat. And when we go out to eat, the amazing thing about the conversation is they remember almost every day of their athletic experience. Most of them tell Sue and I, it was the best 4 years of my life. And they relive the highs and lows and the things they learned and allow you to feel like, in some small way, you were a mentor. And I honestly believe I was a mentor because when I retired, 84 of my former athletes were high school teachers and track coaches. I feel blessed the way God has watched over me and my career. I don't deserve it, but I wound up having it. It was just a pleasure to be a coach and a teacher. I want to thank the committee here for this marvelous award that I'm receiving. Thank you very much.
Ms. Kathleen Sherman graduated from York High School in 1970. She is a member of the Congregation of St. Joseph. She is known worldwide, literally all the way to the Vatican, as a singer, composer, activist, and supporter of the arts. She has a master's in pastoral studies from Loyola, and she's published 22 CDs of music. You will hear 2 pieces of her work later this evening. She's been featured in multiple articles, including the New York Times, for her work ministering and advocating through her music. I loved this when I learned that she worked with the Chicago Archdiocese on developing curriculum related to nonviolence for school children in Chicago. And I hope, Ms. Sherman, that you feel very much at home here at York, a school that so highly values music and service. It is my great pleasure to welcome back to York the very distinguished Kathleen Sherman.
Thank you so much, Diana. Wow. I'm humbled and honored to be recognized tonight as a distinguished alum. I loved my years at York High School. It was an important beginning for my life and career path. And for the record, I can still sing the school song, as well as a song that we wrote to the tune of Hey Look Me Over when York went downstate as the Elite Eight in 1967. Not tonight, I'm not going to sing it for you though. When Debbie Holstein called to tell me that I'd been chosen, I was surprised and touched and certainly grateful. Tonight, however, I want to tell you about 3 teachers that I experienced as a student at York. because from my perspective, they are the real Dukes of Distinction. Because as educators, they enkindled a passion in me that would have an impact on my future life choices and ministry. I begin with Barbara Sloan Hendershot. Barbara taught mythology and creative writing my sophomore year. In mythology, my spirit of creativity and imagination were awakened. Barbara's mastery of the subject matter was captivating, and even more so, her creativity in presenting it. Her teaching of mythology and the power of story nurtured my imagination and helped me to understand early on in life that a story could hold deep truth without being factual. In creative writing, we were told that if we aspired to be writers, which I did, we should always keep a pen and paper on our bedstand, a lesson that I took to heart for many years, until the invention of the tape recorder. But many a song began on those scraps of paper. So thank you, Mrs. Hendershot. Jack Whitmer directed the choral program at York. I was privileged to sing under his direction for 4 years. He was an outstanding music director, passionate and artistic. He demanded excellence, and because he did, we mastered the intricacies of great choral masterpieces. Many of these intricacies I've carried into my own profession as a singer, composer, and director. Mr. Whitmer instilled in us a passion for the music we were singing, and as a result, we were a pretty amazing choir. We also experienced a sense of community that happens when people create something magical together, especially music, as we heard tonight with that beautiful, beautiful orchestra. And even after 45 years, I can easily be transported back on stage with the senior choir and orchestra as we performed Carmina Burana, Cavaliere Rusticano, Carmen, and the March of Aida. While my belief that music plays a significant role in society began with my family, it was surely strengthened and deepened at York, and Jack Whitmer was a major reason why. Thank you, Mr. Whitmer. Marion McKinney taught English literature. She had a warm and ready smile and always a twinkle in her eye. She was a very loving presence, and she was all about excellence. You actually enjoyed learning things that didn't even interest you, like Chaucer. She made learning fun. It was obvious that Mrs. McKinney loved and enjoyed her subject matter, and that's what rubbed off onto her students. My big moment came senior year when we were acting out scenes for Macbeth, and I got to say, "Out, damn spot, out, I say." When I returned for my 40-year reunion some years ago, we toured the buildings and grounds, and obviously lots had changed, including this beautiful, beautiful atrium that we're in tonight, which then was just an open gathering space. But one building stayed the same, and that was the old auditorium. And I peered in to take a look. It was on that stage in 1968 in a variety show entitled York Uncorked that I sang the very first song I ever wrote. It was a poignant moment for me, and one of gratitude for all the life and songs that have followed since that night. Since receiving Debbie's call, I've given much thought to what it might mean to be a person of distinction. I thought first about my awesome family. They were my first teachers in what this means, not only for the success and accomplishments in their own careers, but more importantly because of their integrity, generosity, passion for life, service to others, and their loving hearts and actions that make a difference in the lives of so many others. They are persons of distinction for me. I also thought about my community, the Congregation of St. Joseph. Day in and day out, they live our mission of unity. They are relentless in their thirst for justice, for creating a world that is just and equitable for all. They are compassionate and empowering of others through the ministries in which they serve, and are committed to healing our planet. and they give witness to the inclusive love of God who gathers all into one. They are persons of distinction to me. In conclusion, I believe that every person who follows their heart's path, sharing their gifts to create community and make the world more just and loving, compassionate and inclusive, is a person of distinction. People do ordinary things with extraordinary love all the time. It's just that most never receive the recognition they deserve. Ubuntu is an ancient African word that means, I am what I am because of who we all are. I give thanks for the distinguished company in whose presence the best of who I am has been called forth, nourished, and affirmed. I am who I am because of the countless persons of distinction who have influenced and shaped my life, both in big and small ways. With gratitude to the community of York High School, the community of my family, and the community of my Sisters of St. Joseph, a very heartfelt thank you.
Dr. Robert Chen graduated from York in 1973. He is a world-renowned physician known for his research on immunization at the Center for Disease Control. He graduated from the University of Illinois and then earned his master's degree in public policy and his medical degree from the Pritzker School of Medicine at the University of Chicago. He is a professor of epidemiology at Emory University. He's also the associate editor of Vaccine magazine. He is currently working on HIV prevention research, and he serves on the World Health Organization HIV Vaccine Advisory Committee. Tomorrow, he will meet with our students in science classes, including our students in microbiology, and imagine our Med Careers class. It is my pleasure to welcome back to York, Dr. Robert Chen.
Thank you, Diana, and thank you to all of you. And I want to thank first the 40th reunion committee for my class 1973, many of whom are here, because my family had moved from Elmhurst shortly after I graduated. And so that was actually my first York reunion. And they enticed me to come. And I want to also thank Sue Joseph Montgomery, who went to the trouble of nominating me for tonight's award, which is I'm very honored and humbled to receive it. And in hindsight, as always, it's partly hard work and part of it is just good luck. And I want to show a little bit of that. Let's see. So that was me back in 1973. And that was actually not too far after we immigrated to the U.S. in 1965. Let's see, I'll let you advance it for me. So there I was 10 years old with my mom and my sister, Patty. And that was a wonderful age in retrospect to immigrate. And if any of you are thinking of raising global citizens, think about moving to another country at age 10. Because that's an age where you're old enough to kind of learn the language and the culture of the first country, and then learn the language of the second one without too much of an accent. And And so my sister was 1 year older, my brother's 3 years older, and there's a progression of accents amongst us. And so biologically, we do know now that it's around the age when your brain starts to kind of lock up, and you really do have to learn foreign languages at much younger ages in order to make it work. The other thing that is important, let's see, next slide, is so this is my brother Bill graduating in class of 1970 also, and it turns out that we do now know also that birth order is important. And so when you're number 3 in a class of kind of Asian immigrants, it's good to be number 3 because the others kind of break the ice, and by the time you come along, you're lucky to have all the freedom you want, and that's a very lucky thing. So let's see. Now, so as I said, Bill was in class of 70, my sister Patty was in class of 72, and then it was my turn at York. So I graduated from Bryan High School and moved up to Big York down here. And the first thing that I was exposed to was something called Newtonian democracy. Now, some of you may have heard of Newtonian physics, but at York, it's Coach Joe Newton, who I'm totally honored to be here. So those of you who may or may not know, at that time, the rule was that as long as you were willing to get a crew cut, Coach Noon would take all comers, no matter how good or how bad you were. You were treated equally alike, but first you got to show commitment with that crew cut. And so in retrospect, that turns out to be very important for those of us who may not be natural athletes, because he provided a bridge between usually kind of 2 main divides in high school. There are the geeks, and then there are the jocks. And I think to many students, Coach Newton provided that wonderful bridge to allow those 2 worlds to commingle. And that turns out to be a very important skill set later in life, because I think too often we're kind of segregated between those who are, again, be it the geeks, be it the jocks and the fraternity crowd, but being able to bridge between those 2 worlds turns out to be very important. The other things, and I'll come to academics, but the other thing in retrospect that was very important, at least at that era in high school, was that you could actually go out and get a job and try to make your a little pocket money. And during high school, in retrospect, there were a couple of really important jobs that I took. The first one was being a busboy at this Sheraton hotel in Oak Brook that I think I chatted with some folks about, and that wasn't necessarily that important. But the next important thing is, you can imagine back then, as an immigrant child who English was okay but not totally fluent, what other better job could you get other than to be a door-to-door salesman during the summer, trying to sell goods from the blind, supposedly made by the blind, and it's something called blind skills. And we would go door-to-door throughout, I guess these days they're very crowded, Arlington Heights and all those new suburbs out there. And the trick was that since you were on commission, unless you learn to be good at that and not have these doors slammed in your face, you were not going to do very well. So in any case, that was a very important job. And then the other job, in retrospect, was pretty amazing. There was an engineer who became an advertiser who tinkered and came up with a machine to make adult diapers before kind of elder care became important. And he found a way for high school kids to run his whole factory. And Scott Simon and I ran that whole factory, the 2 of us, on nights and on weekends. We locked up, we turned the machine on, and we produced these boxes. And I must admit, in retrospect, I think some of our quality assurance was a little lacking back then. But those kind of skill sets and opportunity, I think, are less available, I think, to high school kids today, but that was an important part of our growing up. Then, of course, the other part of it was academics. As others have said, York was really renowned, and we were very lucky to have gone through the AP math program. At that time, I think I still remember their names, Mr. Nelson, Mr. Mites, Mr. Benson, and I think it was the Conical Piles was our group. And I still remember Jeff Stensland sitting there. He used to sit up in front, and I used to sit in the back shooting spitballs at Jeff. So that was, somehow we managed to still do okay. And then the science was already back then very strong. In biology, chemistry, and physics, I think we had AP programs in all those. And we were lucky enough that with the advanced credit that at University of Illinois from those AP classes, it allowed me incredible freedom and flexibility to explore ideas as I got to my junior, senior year in a way that I would not have been able to. And this was an exciting time. I think some of you may remember the Vietnam War was still kind of the tail end. I think our class 73 was the last year that actually had a draft card, and we actually had a draft number. And the associated counterculture movement actually unleashed what I would say mostly healthy questioning of orthodoxy and a real renaissance of ideas. And at that time, among important one was the birth of the ecology movement, recognizing that human, rather than owners of the environment, we were but one of multiple species among many that are interrelated, both large and small. So I was lucky as part of that process then to be admitted to medicine at the University of Chicago. And at that time, I saw it as the ultimate liberal arts education, that across the span of not only science, but arts and sociology, et cetera, there were incredible opportunities to learn. And I found that the traditional medical practice at one level was way too conservative for me, because you were really tied to your practice, to the schedule there. And to me, it was much more interesting to practice at the population and national level. And so I was lucky to find public health as my career, combining public and health in different countries. So let's see. So there's me in Senegal during a polio epidemic in 1987. Next slide. And there is me in Red Square in Moscow trying to convince the Russians to accept harm reduction as a way to approach HIV prevention. And I've had a very wonderful, exciting, and sometimes too exciting 30 years career at CDC, exploring the latest chapters in the interplay between humans, other animals, and microorganisms, with primarily immunization as a very powerful Promethean tool. And those of you may remember Prometheus. It's a vision of what we can do, but yet we need to be humble sometimes that we are not gods. So let me finish by thanking my two families. First, my parents for their courage, hope, and sacrifices. So first, my dad. So he, those of you who remember the Cold War and history of China may recall that there was the Communist Party and the Nationalist Party, but unfortunately, both turns out to have been kind of Leninist, one-party totalitarian parties. And at one point, my dad was confronted with the choice of either joining the party or quitting. And in retrospect, it's pretty amazing that with 3 young children, he decided to quit and seek his career in the U.S. with a lot of uncertainty. Because the other thing I didn't mention was that prior to '65, the immigration laws were such that non-Europeans actually didn't have much of a chance to getting in. And so I still remember that we looked for people who knew people at the American Embassy. My mom learned a little bit of English to say, please help my husband to immigrate to the US for his doctorate studies. And so we're here really due to his courage. And then to my mom, go back in the days before cell phone and Facebook,
you could imagine the loneliness of being parachuted into a strange land in which you didn't speak the language. And so she persevered in that, and you know, now in retrospect, I realize the loneliness that she must have faced for so many years. And again, incredible credit to her. And to access the best education possible for their 3 kids, they bought a house right off the railroad track on West Villette Street. You all may remember that railroad track that links that part of town and here, and we walked that because we were just short of where the school buses came to pick kids up. So these long winters, a lot of memories in the harsh cold. So finally, the last picture is my current family with my wife, Ellen, my girls, Megan and Marissa, who really keep me going and who really wanted to be here, but unfortunately, because tonight's a school night, they couldn't come. So thanks again for this wonderful honor, and I'm really pleased to be back.
And now it's our pleasure to introduce to you Miss Beth Finy, who graduated from York in 1976. She was nominated by our own Miss Robin Rogers. She graduated from the University of Illinois with a degree in journalism. She's an accomplished author, journalist, and commentator on NPR and Chicago Public Radio. She wrote a children's book about seeing eye dogs called Hanny and Beth, Safe and Sound. Her essays appear in numerous magazines, including Women's Day and the Chicago Trib magazine. She is a regular contributor to NPR Morning Edition. She teaches memoir writing classes for senior citizens. Tomorrow here at York, which will be a wonderful opportunity for our students. And she has such a packed schedule. There are so many classes that are trying to get a little bit of time with her. I said we have never had an alum that we have had to pack so much in. She will spend time with English classes, she'll spend time with our children's literature class, and at her request, she will spend time in Miss Leslie Stipe's senior pre-calc so she can watch you teach. It's my pleasure to welcome back to York, Miss Beth Finy. And welcome. Can you get me to the podium? Right there. All right. Thank you. Thank you. One second. I'm going to have to keep my leg way over there. Hold on a second. I swore I'd keep this speech 3 minutes, and I just used 1. So I will keep this short. First, thank you so much to Malia Smith, Debbie Holstein, Val Stewart, and everybody at the District 205 office for helping me, because it wasn't easy. I think I'm the first blind person they've had nominated, so when it came to sending pictures, well, I don't know. There was a series of things that I needed a lot of help from them, so thank you guys. I was not blind when I went to York. I lost my sight just before the 10th year reunion. And a woman who was I got in touch with tons of people after this award was announced, so it's been really a ton of fun. One of the women that got in touch with me said she went to the 10th year reunion and there was something in the program that said that I'd lost my sight, and it really bothered her, and she hadn't contacted me all these years, and now she's back in touch. So with her in mind, I am going to have this speech be about the advantages of being blind rather than the disadvantages. One of them is that I cannot see any of you. So even though I know you're texting your friends and showing pictures of your grandchild, go ahead. Go ahead. You know, if you're sleeping, it's fine. I'm going to pretend you're all at the end of your seats waiting for me to say my next best thing. All right, so the first picture, Kathy.
That should be a black and white photo of my family, my mother and my brothers and sisters. Every single person in that picture went to York Community High School. That's how I got nominated. I am the baby. Well, let's start with Flo. Flo's there in the middle. Doesn't she have a hat on, right? Yeah. This is at my brother Doug's wedding. She was in the class of 1938. Then we'll start with me. I'm the youngest. I can't remember where we are on this picture, but I'm the baby. I'm the shortest. I was in the 76. My sister Bev is wearing you can't tell, but we all have these cute little jumpers on. She has a round neck jumper. 1973. Marilee is here. Bev is here. Marilee's in the class of 71. My sister Cheryl has that flip hair. She's back in the back with the bridesmaid dress on with that great flip hairdo. Class of 64, of course. My brother Doug is also in town. He was in the class of 1960. He lives in Louisville now, but he came to town and is performing at Fitzgerald's in Berwyn as we speak. This speech of mine is going to be very short because I and my sisters are hightailing it to Fitzgerald's to go hear Doug after the beat. Which brings me to music. Next slide. There I am in the York Marching Band. This is my senior picture. Our whole family was very involved in music. My older sisters were in the choir. My sister Bev and I were in the band, and so was Doug. Joe Newton's gotten a lot of accolades, and you do deserve them, but so does Mr. Reamer, the band director at York Community High School during our years. Mr. Reamer, we were asked to think of somebody that was important in our lives at York, and it was Mr. Reamer. He was a motivator, not necessarily a positive motivator. He used negativity and fear, and he used it so brilliantly that the York band got just about as many state championships as the cross-country team during our time. We all learned to together be afraid of him. He didn't bully the worst of us, it was if you were first chair, if you were last chair, you were all subject to his preciseness. He wanted high quality, he wanted precision, and he wanted everybody to do the best they could do so that as a team we would be great. And then hi Whitney, she's kind of getting the lay of the land. She has, as a friend, I told a friend before the speech, I said, Whitney is not going to go up those stairs and she's not going to sit on the stairs. And my friend Sandy Perriman said, well, she has stage fright. So that's, okay, so York. How this worked for us as a band and an orchestra was that we all pretty much got along together. We were it was esprit de corps, it was the Marines. I mean, we all had to support each other because we were all afraid of his wrath. So the next picture. That is us. It wasn't all fear and loathing and that's us on I think, is it a group of us? 1976 at Disney World and our band and orchestra trip. And that was really cool in 1976. Disney World had just started. And a lot of the people up on that screen are in the audience today. And if you guys, which brings me to another benefit of being, did I give you the other? Yeah, the second benefit of being blind is I can't see what people look like. So these people all look to me like they did 30 some years ago and have not changed a bit. So I don't know if you can tell who that is up there, but that's how you all look. And in all seriousness, people who are blind cannot judge people by how they look. And we are left to judge them by what they say and what they do, which is what we're all supposed to do, but it is a benefit of being blind. The next pictures are just fun pictures. That's us. Every year, a friend of ours would have an Elton John party. We had to dress up like an Elton John song. The next picture is us as Goodbye Yellow Brick Road. I am Dorothy. Get it? And then the next one is our friend Matt, who always hosted these parties. He is Elton John. Back in the day, this was before Will and Grace. This was before gay marriage. And hello, look at the picture. Matt was gay. But God knows if we all knew that. I don't know, and I don't know that he was made fun of. He wasn't in my presence, but I do think of him. I'm sure he felt lonely at times, and he felt alone. Sometimes when I am in my blindness out in the streets of Chicago, I feel kind of, I don't know who's staring at me, I don't know where I am, but Matt taught me that it's not my problem, it's theirs. And he was a very proud and fun person who, he did die of AIDS. So thank you, Dr. Chen. Keep working on that prevention of HIV. We all miss him. Thanks. And so, how was I able to adjust to my blindness when I was new? I had a lot of support from my family. That's from the first picture. This was helping me do my speech. Music has been very important to me. It's one thing I did not lose when I lost my sight. So I still have a love of music that I learned at York High School. I learned who Mozart was, Rimsky-Korsakov. I learned a lot of the classical musicians by being part of the band. I learned to have fun. Oh, I did learn from Reamer that, you know, blindness is, I didn't learn this from Reamer, let me start again. Blindness is the most feared of all disabilities. I don't know whoever does a survey about which disability do you fear the most, but somebody does, and blindness is the one. So it's scary being blind at times, but I learned through my experience at York that with teamwork and friends and family, you can get through blindness and Mr. Reamer. So that's kind of my thing. The people that helped me the most adjust to my blindness is my little family, which is the next picture, our family portrait. This is my husband, Mike, and me, and our son, Gus, right? And the sled. And poor Dora, my first thing. I don't know how big this picture is. Can you see how miserable she is? Yeah. So, and Gus isn't exactly happy either, but that's our son. But the last big advantage, these guys, and especially Mike, we had only been married 3 months when I started losing my sight to a disease called retinopathy. We've all stuck together. All the friends that have here stuck together. Family's still here. Thank you all. Thanks for this award. And the last benefit of being blind is, 2 benefits. I can't see Les' uncle holding a card saying 5 minutes are up, so that's one. And then the last one is, you get to bring a dog with you wherever you go, and they're even Pandora on the sled. So thank you all for the award. Thanks for being here, and if you have the energy, let's see you at Fitzgerald's after this. Bye-bye. Do I have to stay to get my award? Do I get my award? It's Jimbo.
Beth and I are classmates.
We went, yeah. And he was never James, whatever you are now, Dr. James Scott. He was Jimbo. Do I get my plaque?
You get your plaque. It's right here. In fact, I'm happy to walk you to the table.
Thank you.
She wasn't encouraging us to start calling the president of the board Jimbo, was she? Just checking on that. Probably not. Mr. Gary Rystrom graduated from York High School in 1977. He also graduated from the USC School of Cinematic Art, where he has since returned to be a guest lecturer. He is a 7-time Academy Award winning film and sound director whose credits include Saving Private Ryan, Jurassic Park, Titanic, Toy Story, Star Wars, Finding Nemo, Minority Report, and A River Runs Through It. He has been credited in a number of documentaries, including The Long Green Line, about our own cross-country program. He is currently directing an animated film for Lucasfilm, which will be soon released by Disney, and unexpectedly was unable to be here with us tonight. But it is my pleasure to welcome his sister, Miss Beth Knudsen, who will accept the honor on his behalf, and I think share a message from him. Beth?
Yeah, I'm not Gary. I'm a little shorter. I have much less gray hair, as you can see, so I will do my best. But as Diana said, this was kind of a last-minute change where he couldn't come, and For those of us who've been in our family and friends know this is somewhat of a common occurrence with Gary in his career. But it is a very exciting time. As Diana said, he just finished his first feature animated film as a director, and that's just an amazing thing. It's a story that George Lucas had created, and George is actually the executive producer on it. So when they started working on it and George saw it with Gary a few weeks ago, he was so excited that he was like, okay, now we're gonna just make some finishing touches before it's released in January. So he's kind of been a little bit, gonna be a little bit occupied. But we're so proud of him, and it's just a great honor for him, obviously, to have George Lucas as a mentor and some of the other people as well. So the movie, actually, the press release, if you're looking, is actually going to come out on Monday. He was hoping it might come out this week before tonight's event. But it's going to be called Strange Magic, which is actually the title of an ELO song, for those of you who might know it. And it's going to be released in January. So we'll watch for that, and it's very exciting. So Gary has actually put together some slides, but I want to just make a few very brief comments about my brother, my older brother. Something like this, you obviously have a lot of passion for. Gary was getting silent films shipped to our house when he was in grade school. We watched Charlie Chaplin, watched Buster Keaton. He had the reel-to-reel editing machine, because yes, there's this thing called film, and he would sit in his room for hours and hours and be splicing and editing his film, and that was in high school. What I was trying to find, since he forced me to kind of do this for him tonight, was one of those high school movies that involved some toilet paper, but I couldn't find it, and he told me it was burned. So I just wanted to let Gary know that he owes me one, because I'm not going to really say any more about the toilet paper film. But the thing about Gary that I think I'm most in awe about is that he had the courage to follow his dream. This wasn't easy. But I think that the support he had from the community here at York, from his friends, including Dave Granada, who's here tonight, and especially from my parents, Roger and Barbara, who are here in Florida. You know, they never doubted him. Sending your kid off to USC film school, not only from tuition, but what you're gonna do it takes a little courage from a parental standpoint as well. So they supported him. And obviously, that was the best gift, because it's paid off. So all I'd like to say is, bottom line, provide that kind of support to your friends and family, because as Gary's story will tell you, dreams do come true. So with that, I'd like to proudly introduce my brother, Gary Rystrom.
Thank you to everyone at York High School, the Distinguished Alumni Program, and especially Holly Cost for this really wonderful honor. I'm sorry I can't be there in person, but it works out well that my sister Beth is accepting on my behalf, because she is much better looking than I am. I imagine right now they are showing on a really big screen my old yearbook picture, the one that looks like my hair was lowered onto my head by a crane. While in high school, I fell in love with movies and movie making. I knew I wanted to work in the film business, and this was crazy. But no one told me I was crazy. Not my friends, not even my parents, who bravely supported my goal, even as it seemed like every friend of mine from York was going to medical school. I used my York friends, all those future doctors, to make Super 8 films. I had a plan. I knew exactly what I wanted and exactly what would happen. And here's what happened. I went to the USC School of Cinema, undergraduate and then graduate school, where I proposed a thesis film, which was turned down by the faculty. So I made a mean-spirited animated movie about that stupid faculty, which oddly the faculty loved. But I had no interest in animation, except as an act of revenge, so I became a writer, got a writing scholarship, and never wrote a thing. Got a big break as Francis Coppola's personal projectionist, but he kept calling me Barry and asked how things were going at UCLA. If he ever had an opportunity, it probably went to some jerk named Barry at UCLA. love of silent comedies that drew me to film, so naturally my first job was in film sound, which I surprisingly liked. I did sound for the first Pixar films, which led to the chance to direct a short film, which I approached like a silent film comedy, except it was animation, which I had dismissed years earlier, and now I'm an animation director. Careers sometimes find you. Now I work at Lucasfilm, directing, sound designing, living the glamorous movie life. Here I am, pulling a very old, very heavy plow at Skywalker Ranch. I was recording the sound of the plow for Steven Spielberg's film War Horse. This image neatly sums up the life of a sound man. The key ability needed in sound is the ability to listen. Sound designers take real sounds and use them in unexpected ways. One day when I was stuck coming up with the sound for the liquid metal T-1000 in Terminator 2, I was feeding my dog and noticed the metallic squish of the dog food sliding out of its can. I recorded it and won an Oscar. It pays to keep you. I owe everything to the people who listened when I was at York. Deep thanks to this community, this school, my teachers, friends, and family. And to the students at York, my advice is simple. Become a doctor. To be a doctor, be whatever you dream of being, but be brave enough to follow unexpected, crooked paths. You never know what will find you. And above all, keep your ears open. Thank you.
Our final honoree is Joseph Vanick. Sergeant Vanick graduated from York in 2003, a classmate of my son's. He loved history and he planned to study it in college. In fact, there is a scholarship named for him at Elmhurst College called the Light of Knowledge Award. The swearing-in room in downtown Chicago, the processing center for new military recruits, is named for Sergeant Vanick. He was a paratrooper in the 82nd Airborne. He served 3 tours of duty in Iraq. He earned a Bronze Star and a Purple Heart, and tragically was killed by sniper fire in 2007. At this time, it's my great honor to introduce Sergeant Vanick's sister, Anne St. Martin, who will accept the award on his behalf.
Excuse me. Good evening. My name is Anne St. Martin, and I am Joe Vanick's sister. My mother, Jan Vanick, and I would like to thank Tom McKellen, the class of 1977, for nominating Sergeant Joe Vanick, and thank the selection committee for bestowing this honor on my brother. Tonight, Colonel Stuart Van Buren, the commander of the Chicago Military Processing Station, is here supporting Sergeant Vanick's memory and representing the United States military. The AA is the symbol of the 82nd Airborne, which stands for All-American. Joe, my younger brother, was a true example of an All-American boy. Joe is a product of District 205, Emerson, Churchville, and York. He enjoyed playing Eagles football, skateboarding, hanging out with friends, and he loved his dog, a boxer named Buster. He loved history. My father, Frank, an Army veteran who served in Vietnam, got Joe interested in history at a very early age. It was further fueled at Churchville with social studies classes taught by Mr. Caldwell, and then by global studies and honors history taught at York by Mr. Stan Rettel. Later on in the Army, Joe would make his Army buddies watch the History Channel, or in Iraq, he would make his squad watch all of the Planet of the Apes. He said it was so they could see what would happen if we did not respect the history of the past. During his senior year at high school, Joe realized he was not ready for college, so he decided to enlist in the Army with the goal of becoming a paratrooper in the historic 82nd Airborne. This was not much of a surprise to the family, since at the age of 2, he would jump off the top of the refrigerator, or in grade school off the top of the garage, always practicing his landing and his rolls. Joe was assigned to the 2nd Battalion, 325th Airborne Infantry Regiment, 2nd Brigade Combat Team, 82nd Airborne Division, Fort Bragg, North Carolina. He died November 12, 2007, in Baghdad, of wounds sustained when enemy forces attacked his unit using small arms fire. He was 22 years old. The Army brought out the best in my brother Joe, and he became a man he was destined to be. My parents would always say, that Joe knew himself as a person at a very early age, and as a man. I'm the older sister, but there were many times I would go to my brother for some advice, or truth-telling as he called it. He was always there helping me get right back on track. Joe knew himself better than many people will ever know themselves. His Catholic faith was very strong, and he often complained that priests rarely made it to the battlefields. He would drive across the desert to get to a mass if he had to. The weekend before he was killed, he woke up at 5 a.m., got all his fellow Catholic soldiers together, either through guilt or scare tactics, and took them to mass where he knew there was a priest who would be giving communion. I like to think that this was a divine intervention, and it was God offering his final blessing to Joe. Joe did have a strong BS detector, as we like to call it, and he was a very good judge of character. You had to earn Joe's respect. He was a strong and demanding leader, but as one soldier told us, Sergeant Vanick was also fun to be with. He set high standards for himself and his men. He loved his family, he loved his friends, and he loved the Army, and they loved him. Our family has been comforted getting to know and staying in touch with many of the many men from the 82nd Airborne, and we get to know the many fine young men that Joe served with. When my father passed away in May 2010, 10 of those 82nd Airborne men came in from all over the United States to be with my mom and I, out of respect for Joe. And when we thanked them all for coming, they all simply looked at us and said, Joe would have done the same for me, and we're family. Some of Joe's honors and decorations include the Bronze Star Medal, the Purple Heart, the Army Commendation Medal, the Combat Infantry Badge, and the Parachutist Badge, Some comments from Joe's platoon lieutenants, specialists, and his captains, I think illustrate what a wonderful soldier he was. He lived every day to the fullest, Specialist Burrows said, and he knew when to have a good time, but he knew when to focus on missions. I would follow him into combat any day. Lieutenant Bopp said Joe was an amazing squad leader, someone I knew I could depend on no matter what the task. He was my go-to NCO for any mission that required delicate work. In combat, he was a rock. And his captain wrote, he gave maximum effort regardless of the task. He was never one to shy away from danger. He was a leader by example, consistently placing himself in harm's way, out front, inspiring his paratroopers through action. I knew I could count on Sergeant Vanick even in the hardest times. He led his squad exceptionally well, and his leadership saved lives. In closing, I would like to thank District 205 and York for providing my brother with the foundation to go on and excel in the Army. In history classes taught by excellent teachers, Joe's patriotic spirit was awakened. I want to acknowledge the wonderful city of Elmhurst that supports education and good schools. It is a community that you can be proud to live in, raise your family in, and one that teaches core values in every grade at every school. A community that lined the streets of my brother's funeral procession the day we buried him, holding flags along their way and giving their silent support and love for one of their own. A community and a school that produces people like Tom McKellen, who nominated Joe for this award, who 7 years ago brought his daughter to the funeral of a young man he never knew, but he wanted to pay his respects and tell his children about the sacrifices made by many brave men and women who serve this country and protect our freedom. Joe's probably looking down on this event thinking, what's all the fuss about? And also, you better not be embarrassing me, Ann. He would simply think he did his job, just like many men do. He would say I would do it again. I was an American infantry soldier and a paratrooper, all the way. I found a quote by President Kennedy that I think captures what York provided for Joe. Let us think of education as the means of developing our greatest abilities, because in each of us there is a private hope and dream, which fulfilled can be translated into benefit for everyone and greater strength for our nation. Thank you again for this wonderful award for Sergeant Joe Vanick.
To close tonight, I thought it would be appropriate to hear from a student for our closing. And it's my pleasure to introduce to you a young man who is a member of the York Advisory Team. Tonight, he is representing all of the students at York. He is a scholar, he's an athlete, he's a musician, a drum major for us, he's a gentleman. This is Spencer Cost.
Good evening. No, it's still right. I'll just crouch. Okay. Good evening. My name is Spencer Cost, and I'm a senior here at York. Today, I think you can make a suggestion.
Not to be bossy, but
I'll hold it now. Okay. So as I was saying, good evening. My name is Spencer Cost, and I'm a senior here at York. Today was my last day of cross country, an experience that, as many of you probably know, will stay with me for the rest of my life. It was the first of many lasts that are all going to be part of my senior year. And York is a place that I've gotten so used to, it's only starting to hit me that in a few months I'll be leaving forever. I don't know what will happen. There are almost an infinite number of paths my life could follow after I graduate. However, as I look out at these accomplished Dukes, I am reassured and inspired. These amazing men and women walked the halls of York. They relaxed in this very commons. They crammed for tests late into the night, and they graduated out there on our football field. They began their illustrious careers right here at this very school. They were Dukes. And in the November of their senior year, if I had to hazard a guess, they probably didn't know where they would end up. When they graduated, they walked out of the doors of York High School into a vast, unknown world. But look at them now. One of the most decorated cross-country coaches of all time, member of 4 Hall of Fames, an inspiration to thousands of runners. A woman who struggled through adversity to become an award-winning author, radio commentator, and teacher. A singer and composer who brings messages of unity to the world. A doctor who helped create the CDC's safety infrastructure to meet the demands of an interconnected and global health community. A cardiologist who was instrumental in nearly every major technological advancement in cardiac care at Elmhurst Hospital during his tenure, making it one of the premier institutions in the area. A film sound designer who has been nominated for 17 Academy Awards, winning 7, working on iconic films such as Terminator 2, Jurassic Park, Toy Story, Titanic, the Lord of the Rings trilogy, and Saving Private Ryan. And a paratrooper in the prestigious 82nd Airborne Division who was deployed to combat 3 times in Iraq and gave the ultimate sacrifice for his country. These people have made a difference. They took what they were given here and ran with it. I'm sure there were snags. I'm sure there were times when even these remarkable men and women faltered, but they persevered. They found a way to succeed, and that is why we are honoring them today as truly distinguished alumni. So when the class of 2015 walks out these doors for the last time, when they take away our IDs and we have to go into the real world, it may seem overwhelming. But take a look around. Look at these 7 people who had the same feelings and know that we aren't just high school graduates. We are York Dukes. We can change the world, be a leader in our field, make wonderful things out of our lives. I, for one, know that hearing about each of these distinguished alumni inspires me to one day sit where they are sitting. And I would like to thank every single one of these astounding individuals for coming and sharing their stories with us. They're wonderful, amazing, awe-inspiring stories which all began right here at York Community High School. Thank you.
How about that? So now as we close, what a special closing we'll have, we'll hear two pieces of music written and recorded by Kathleen Sherman. The first one is called Walk With Me, written in response to the violence in our city streets. And let's listen to that together as we close. And then the second piece is called The Dance of Peace, Salam Shalom, which will serve as our recessional. Again, we want to thank all of you for being here tonight. It's been such a very special evening. Thank you.
The Churchville Schoolhouse opens the door to the best education in history. Visitors to the Churchville Schoolhouse take a step back in time to watch history unfold in a restored National Register of Historic Places property that dates to the Civil War era. Students of today walk in the footsteps of local farm children from the early days of DuPage County for an authentic living history experience led by a schoolmarm of the early 1900s. A visit to the Churchville Schoolhouse is hands-on, educational, and fun. Participants use slate chalkboards and McGuffey readers for the day's lessons. And children will be asked to follow proper classroom etiquette. Reading, writing, and arithmetic are practiced, and students test their skills during an old-fashioned spelling bee. And of course, no school day is complete without recess featuring games of the early 1900s. The schoolhouse is a popular place for scouts and day camps too. Group visits can also be arranged for service clubs, tour groups, and other adult organizations. The Churchville Schoolhouse Living History program is operated by the Elmhurst Historical Museum. Call the museum today to book a field trip or find out more information. Call 630-833-1457 or visit our website at churchvilleschoolhouse.org. The Churchville Schoolhouse is waiting to open the doors for your school or community group. Plan a memorable learning experience today for the best education in history.